Social media. I'm Dr. Mary Cecil. Social media is not just Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It can include content sharing, social analytics, social brand engagement, social data, social intelligence, social promotion, social referral, social scoring, and so much more. And there are technologies to help manage social media, including archiving solutions, services that protect, retain social media for compliance, discovery, digital preservation, and records management, unified solutions, services and software that facilitate the management of different file types across the enterprise, integrate solutions, services that integrate various types of systems, and records management to manage records and information for business operations and compliance. Social media brings lots of risks to an organization. And contributing to this is a lack of a social media policy. Many organizations are now discovering the extent to which social media has popped up in various pockets of their organizations. They may believe that their email and communications policies will pretty much cover social media. It's not worth the time and expense to update information governance policies to include social media. This invites complexities and potential disaster. One simple Twitter comment could invite litigation. Social media can add value to an organization's effort to reach out to customers and stakeholders, but this needs to be weighed carefully against the accompanying risks. The objectives of a social media initiative must be spelled out, and metrics should be put in place to measure progress. But more than that, who can utilize social media on behalf of the company, and what can they state, and needs to be established with clarity in the information governance policy. If not, employees are essentially flying blind without controls and are more likely to put that organization at risk. More than policy is needed. If an organization is going to embark on a social media program, it needs an executive sponsor to champion and drive the program, communicating the policy to key leaders. There also needs to be training and consistent training, and training is key since social media is a moving target. Employees are the accidental and intentional insider threat. This may be in part due to a lack of social media policy or due to a lack of monitoring and enforcement. Sometimes an employee harms an organization intently, but sometimes it's also unintentionally. Sometimes emotion gets the better of an employee before they've rationally thought out a consequence. And that's especially true in the world of social media, where it may be unclear exactly who sees a comment. The dangers of social media are quite different from those posted in an isolated, off-color, or offensive mark made in the workplace, or even one made in an email. Social media, it's possible that the whole world will be able to see a comment meant only for a limited audience. Consider that a rogue employee intent on damaging a company has a great impact. What if a chief executive assistant were to release the details of a strategic plan, litigation, or an ethics investigation to the public, or some type of embarrassing details of a CEO's private life? That impact could be quite costly. But risks can be mitigated. An information governance framework for social media can help, and it needs to incorporate a social media policy as well as controls and operational guidelines, and spell out consequences for violations. Best practices for social media still are being established, and those that have been established are evolving. In addition to establishing policies to govern the use of social media across the organization, a cross-section of functional groups within the enterprise should provide input into the policy-making process. At the very minimum, internal audit, marketing, finance, information technology, legal, human resources must be consulted, and all business units should be represented. Clear roles and responsibilities should be spelled out, and controls should be established to govern acceptable use, essentially what is allowed, what is not. Even writing style, logo format, branding, and other marketing considerations should be weighed. The enterprise image and brand are at risk, and steps should be taken to protect this valuable though intangible, asset. And most important, all legal and regulatory considerations must be folded into a new information governance governing the use of social media. An information governance framework for social media should incorporate social media policies, controls, and operational governance spelled out in consequences for violations. A good social media policy specifies who is authorized to create social media accounts for the organization. It authorizes who can speak on the organization's behalf and who cannot by role and responsibility, not by an individual's name. It outlines the type of negative impact on the company's brand and regulation that unscreened, poorly considered posts could have. It draws clear distinctions between business and personal use of social media and specifies whether personal access is allowed during work hours. It underscores the fact that employees should not have any expectation of privacy when social media for corporate purposes, just as in other forms of communication such as email and voicemail, which may be monitored. Clearly states what is proper and allowed and what is forbidden in social media's posts. Instructs employees to always avoid engaging in company confidential and controversial discussions. Encourages or requires employees to include a standard disclaimer when publishing content to make it clear that the views shared are representatives of the company and not the organization itself. Strictly forbids the use of profanity and uses a professional business tone, although it is more informal than other corporate communications. Strictly forbids any statements that could be construed as defamatory, discriminatory, or inflammatory. Outlines clear punishments and negative actions that could occur to enforce social media policy, and it draws clear use of the employee name and the logo. From a records management perspective, it's critical to consider that social media posts are more than the posts themselves. For legal or compliance purposes, they include metadata and hyperlinks to external content, and that external content in its native form, and that should also be preserved, preferably in real time. That external content could be a PDF, a PowerPoint, website content, or video, which would require archiving along with the metadata in its place. Content found in social media networks could be static or dynamic, could be profiles in Facebook and blog posts, could be captured before being profiled on the web. There are also best practices that go along with social media. First of all, identify records during the social media planning stage. Both the social media policy and the records and information policy should refer to a form to be completed by the person or unit proposing a new social media initiative. That person completing the form should indicate if records will be created, and if so, how will they be managed. And then use cross-functional communications. A social media team of representatives from various departments such as IT, social media, legal, compliance, records management, and other stakeholders is formed, and communication and collaboration is encouraged and supported. Require consultation and policy development. Extending beyond the social media team, input and advice from multiple stakeholders groups is essential for creating IG policies that cover social media records management. Establish clear roles and responsibilities. The cross-functional social media team must lay out clear expectations and responsibilities and draw lines of accountability so that stakeholders understand what is expected of them. Utilize content management principles. Management of social media content should fall under software implementation, which can capture and track content, including associated metadata and external content, and manage that social media content through its life cycle. Implement records management functionality. Management by an ERM system that offers features that enable record retention and disposition, implementation of legal holds, and lifting of legal holds is essential. And control the content. Clear guidelines and monitoring mechanisms should be in place to control and manage content before it gets published on the web. If there's any potential risk at all, make sure that content is managed prior to publication. Capture content in real time. By implementing a real-time content capture solution for content posted directly to social media, organizations will begin their control and management of the content at the soonest point and can more easily prove it's authentic and reliable from a legal perspective. Champion search capabilities. After capture and preservation of records and associated metadata, search capabilities are the single most feature that the technology must provide. And train. Social media is new and continuing emerging technology, and it changes quickly. Employees need to be trained and retrained. The training needs to be updated on a regular basis so that employees have clear guidelines, understand the technology, and understand the business objectives for its use. So social media is a emerging technology, and we also need information governance to manage its risks. We need to mitigate its risk and use best practices to best control its use.